Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Practical Guitarist or on Twitter as @PractGuitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com. Hello, Jim.
Hello, David. This
Hello,
is the sound
wife.
of me cracking a beer.
My wife is creeping up behind me.
Okay, I'm not very good at this.
It's good, though. You're drinking a beer, so it kind of makes
why?
it worth it.
So everybody, I literally just got the news that Rick Ocasek has passed away.
Yeah,
And
terrible.
those of you, it might be just a pop singer and it might be just everything else to some people, but for Rick Ocasek, for me, as a kid growing up, the Cars was a huge band to learn chugging guitar parts and kind of pseudo punk with with what they called a new wave at the time.
It was
feel.
new wave sound mixed with basically driving punk music in a lot of ways. Actually, the only band I can think that had an impact on me the same way the Cars did, very similar, is the Police.
Yeah.
And even in the same way that as they got older, they branched out into different sounds with things like Drive and stuff like that. But
yeah. And of course we lost bass player early.
Yeah.
He died of a brain aneurysm a long time ago. It's just sad,
Yep.
I knew Ocasek probably wasn't doing well. He didn't tour with him last time. They had Todd Rundgren singing his parts.
So we're reaching the point in our lives where we're going to start losing a lot of these heroes,
Yeah.
and that's
I'm in my mid-50s.
It's just another one.
Yeah.
And I know it's weird because even my age group, and I'm significantly younger than you, Jim. I mean, obviously you could be my dad. You could be my dad.
I literally could be your father.
and it's a big deal for our age group too. There's a lot of people in my age group that really enjoy the music of the Cars. So I being one of them. So it's a big deal to me. And what a loss. Anyway, I would highly recommend, if you're not familiar with the Cars, go get a bunch of their records and check them out at least. Yeah,
I had this sitting on my desk.
He's got one. He's got one in his hand. Yeah.
I just happened to find it yesterday. It's just sad news for me. Sorry.
Yeah, dude. Big deal. Well, so a lot of crazy stuff is going down right now in the gear world, and the one thing I think Jim and I would give us a moment of levity here.
Yeah, let's please. I hate it right now.
So Gibson announced this. Well, they didn't really announce. What happened was somebody tweeted out to him, was like, when the hell are you going to do something about the Gibson headstock? And then Gibson shot back, we're going to do something about it. And so now people are going, what is going to happen with the Gibson headstock crisis? And it's funny because it was in regards to the old Epiphone headstocks. So they wanted to bring back the 60s era Epiphone headstock, which they actually used on some of their models, right? Like the Sheraton or something like that, even now. And they're wanting to put that across the line, I think, is what Gibson is kind of indicating with this.
Yeah, and that just doesn't seem right on a Les Paul. That will look worse.
No, it's going to look worse because it's going to look longer.
So now you're going to be able to play Jimmy Page and row your boat with it. Which, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just...
Honestly, I just want, I would be fine with just a straight paddle headstock. on an Epiphone. To be honest with you, I think it looks better than anything with the carved wings.
Why do they want to do that? So first of all, those who aren't familiar with the Sheraton and what's the other one? The Dot, Epiphone Dot.
Any of the big semi hollows, I guess.
So it's elongated,
right?
So instead of going to an open book, which would bring the Epiphone headstock a little closer to the Gibson, they're going to actually make it longer, even more weird. Which means if you want to buy an Epiphone, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, because I think honestly,
I'm buying an Epiphone. I really do. I think I'm going to buy an Epiphone.
I don't know if I could bring myself to do that. Really, for me, the problem I have with the current Epiphone shape is that it doesn't have the sharp corners at the edges.
Right.
They're like kind of rounded off and go down.
Right.
What they're going to do is instead they're going to make this big inflated headstock.
Right. Which
it doesn't fix the problem.
I always hated those. I can't stand the Epiphone hollow body style headstocks.
I just don't understand why they can't.
Sheraton,
I don't understand why they can't put the Gibson headstock on there with an Epiphone name on it. I just don't get it.
I don't know.
Like what?
Just do what everybody else
They've done it before. They've done it before. That's the problem.
And Guitar World even mentioned that, Paul Reed Smith had done this already. What the hell's wrong with you?
So
so
what's going to end up happening is they're going to put a bunch of other guitars out that are going to sell pretty well at the beginning because people are like, oh, it's different than they were before, but they're not going to sell as well as they would if they'd put the Gibson headstock logo on there. And I think long term they're just going to be the same sales level as they were before.
Yeah, they'll just go right back.
And it's not, this isn't about the Epiphone quality level of the guitars. I mean, for the most part, they're decent. Like I played, recently I played like an Epiphone G400 that was like stellar. And I
know, right?
I could have sat there and I was like, didn't have that stupid headstock, My biggest problem though is they still seem to think that everybody wants to play like the baseball bat for a neck. And that, I mean, like I get it. Some people really like that. They think it's more comfortable, but I think you kind of go middle of the road.
Well, I just played a custom that felt like it had a 60s style slim taper. So
it just depends. Like I say, it just depends on the model, but a lot of the low end stuff like that I picked up, it's big fat necks, like baseball bats and tree trunks. And I sit there and I kind of go, why would you put that on your budget model? I mean, honestly, like you want to get people in the door. You want to have something that's accessible, not something that's going to turn people off.
And because it's your budget model, it's going to be aimed at people who are beginners or
right. Now maybe they don't know any better and they figure they can get away with it. I don't know. Maybe there's some like, and this is gonna sound really dumb, but maybe there's some sort of like cost benefit to this. Like if they have a big fat neck, like maybe it makes the chances of the neck warping like lower or something like that. I don't know. And I wonder if that's partially what's driving it. But nevertheless, Gibson, I really want to see him do something smart, but it just seems like they keep, doing some like sort of smart stuff and getting called out for it or whatever. But I think the response to this has been overwhelmingly positive, and I just don't think anybody read between the lines and what they were really saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyway, there's the big Gibson thing, and then we had Sam Miller on last week. That was great.
Yeah.
Special thanks to Sam Miller. He gave us a great episode. We had a nice conversation with him before and after the episode too.
Yeah. And what's funny is he had mentioned to us, I think it's okay to mention this, is that he had talked to the 60 Cycle Hum guys, Ryan and Steve.
Oh, yeah.
And he's actually friends with them. They live
he's
local
close
to each
friends
other.
with them.
I guess his wife grew up with them, right?
Yeah.
And it's just funny because they had been talking, hey, we got to get you on the show. He
ended up getting on our show before he got on theirs. And he lives like 15 minutes away.
Yeah. I live 3,000 miles.
Not that we knew about that when we booked Sam Miller, but it was just one of those funny things where he gets on the show and he's like, I was supposed to be on 60 Cycle Hum a couple times and it's just never panned out. They need to get him on their show because he's a ham. Like he'd be really good for their show too. God, what a wealth of information though.
Yeah. I mean, I never knew so much about banjos.
Yeah,
honestly,
dude.
And I had played banjos in the past as a kid
I own
and
one.
as an adult. Yeah, you own one. But I never I never really thought about the physics of it or why there was a back on some and not on others. And
Yeah. It's like a whole thing. That instrument is just
now I
it's
want
wild.
one.
Yeah, well, I wish you could like do electric guitar stuff with a banjo because that would be my thing. Like if I could somehow parlay it into doing the electric guitar thing, but
You need a Line 6 Variax.
no, we're not going to. No, I need that like I need a hole in the head. Let me explain something to our listeners right now. Jim may not know this yet, but he's going to. I'm going to try not to make him spit his beer out. So I took the money from my AZ that I got back, and it went right out the door, and I paid debt with it. And I don't feel bad about it at all. And
nice.
Like for the first time in my life, I feel like I made a really responsible decision, and I adulted properly for a change. And my wife and I kind of sat down after I did it, and we had a long discussion about how we were going to kind of try to sort out our situation. And so I'm pretty much going on a hiatus, and I'll get more into that here in a minute. I'm going on a hiatus for like for quite some time. Could be several years. And I've been given an allowance, and it's a very small allowance. So this is going to feed directly into the whole idea of like we were talking about doing the bargain basement part of the show, budget friendly thing. And so I'm already looking at items that I can afford. But that being said, I have $40, and that includes like if I want to go out and eat McDonald's during the week while I'm driving around or something like that. Right. All of that. That's my $40, right?
See, I do that to myself already. I don't have anybody that
a lot of people do that.
I do that to myself. I say, okay, Jim, matter of fact, this is a list right here. See? Mm-hmm. And so there's bills and then the total. That's what I have
what you have left over.
After my paycheck. Right. And then I put most of that away. Uh-huh. So believe it or not, I spent a third of that already.
Yeah.
Just going to the grocery store. And it's crazy. You know, I have a dog.
No, your pets will get you, man.
The grocery store.
Dude, your pets will get you. Like my two sets of strings is what my cats cost me per week.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, like we're $20 strings. Like my 7-string sets are $17. So, I mean that's not cheap. Yeah, and my strings have got to come out of that $40 too. So.
He's a big dog, so a 50-pound bag of dog food.
Yeah, dude.
Not a 10-pound bag or an 8-pound bag, a 50-pound bag of dog food. But people did say to me, "Oh, your dog must eat so nicely," because I had the dog food, and then he has treats that he gets certain days.
Yeah.
So I give him these treats on these days and these treats, and it kind of keeps him in a pattern or rotation. Either that or just keeps me knowing what day of the week it is. I'm not sure which one it is.
Did we? Because we had Sam on last week. We didn't talk about the open mic I went to, did we? And that whole shenanigans situation. We have to talk about this.
We got to talk about open mics because I had.
We got to talk about failing. Well. We got to talk about failing because that's what happened. So I get this wild hair. I get this email in the morning from there's a company called Micro Music Festivals. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if they're the pay to play type deal or whatever the situation is, but apparently. They're like a franchise that does what they call micro music festivals, which are basically open mic nights and jam nights, right? They get a host. The host gets paid by them, I think, and then the bars contract out to them. And so but supposedly it's supposed to be, like these venues don't have to deal with all the management of it, and micro music festivals handles it. So
that's normal.
That's fine. Like I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
Because it makes the club owner not have to worry about it so much. Right. So I there's one starting in my area. I went on the first night.
Oh yeah.
Now, so I walk in, I have my Kiesel with me, right? Because I'm like, well, I'll probably just play the tracks. There's not going to be anybody here. It's the first night. I might be the only person that shows up. Right. So I walk in, and the bill is almost full, but there's nobody there. Like, people signed up, because you could sign up online. And
that's BS. They should never allow that.
I don't think they will in the future. I think that's gonna get manipulated. Because immediately comes up to me, shakes my hand, talk for a minute, says, hey, you want to play at 9:10? I got an opening, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's fine. I'll play wherever you can fit me in. If somebody doesn't show up, I'll play, whatever. He's like, okay, that's cool. Nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Jack Byron, And actually, I really enjoyed his music too. He's got a bunch of recordings and stuff available online, I think. But anyway, so everything's cool, except that I'm looking around. I'm going, where's the amplifier? There's no drum set.
Oh,
no amplifier. And I'm going, this is a bar. Like, this is a real open mic, right? Like, this isn't one of those, like, coffee house things, right? And I'm kind of looking around. None of this stuff's in sight. So I grab Jack and I'm like, you got an amp? He says, no. He's like, I can plug you into the board. And I'm like, Jim, describe my facial expression.
Yeah, exactly. He just looked like somebody took away his lollipops.
Yeah, I was like, what? And I thought about it for a split second. I was like, well, I could cut treble off at the board and probably do a passable thing, right? And I guess I was like, no, I am not doing this without cabinet emulation. Like, this is not going to happen. Because I can tell you right now, it's going to sound like hot ass. Like, so I sit down and he comes over and he talks to me for a minute. He says, you're welcome to play my acoustic if you want. And I'm going, dude, I haven't played an acoustic set in probably 10 years. And I'm like, and on top of that, I haven't played an acoustic guitar in probably well over a year at this point. Other than, try them out in the store or whatever.
Right.
I don't think I'd played a complete acoustic song in probably 10 years. Right.
Yep.
So I'm like kind of panicking and I'm going through, I open my Kiesel bag and I go through all of the stuff in it. And I'm like, what can I do to make this work? Like, got my tuner out, got my cables out, got my, Angry Driver, this is literally all I brought, right? And I'm kind of looking at the table, I'm just going, oh, I'm screwed. And then I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, it's like 8:45. Guitar Center is like right around the corner. I'm thinking like maybe I should just drive over there. And I'm like, I'm broke. That ain't gonna work. So I basically bit the bullet. And I played an acoustic set.
And at our Guitar Center, you could rent.
Yeah, but dude, I didn't have any cash.
$10.
So I'm like, I know, dude. The thought crossed my mind. So I'm like, all right, well, here we go. And what ends up
Hey Joe, where'd you go with that?
No. It was worse than that.
Oh.
So,
sunshine.
Now let's talk about this.
Shoulder.
So, obviously, I know what I'm doing, right? Like I've played successful open mic gigs before.
Right,
I played successful real gigs before. I've actually been paid to play before, which is, that's kind of cool.
Every week.
Jim gets paid a lot to play. And so I'm just kind of like sitting here thinking like, this is going to go really badly. And, I'm like, I'll just make the most of it. And so I start kind of like mulling over in my head while I'm watching the other performers, which by the way, all of them were great, but we'll get into that in a minute. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going up like fourth. People started to filter in. There was a couple of people that were on the billing. The first guy never showed up. The second guy was like, I didn't know I was playing tonight. He's like, I signed up, but he's like, I thought I was signing up for next week. And apparently he's in from out of town. He lives in Virginia and he's moving to Chicago and he didn't have a guitar or anything. So, but dude, that guy killed. It was unbelievable how good he was. And you could tell
it was nice that the host offered his guitar though.
Yes, it was. And I have a feeling, and I'm not going to say, if Jack is listening, I don't want him to think badly, but I have a feeling he brought his B instrument.
Yeah. I mean, I would too.
Cause, it was a Fender acoustic. I gotta say though, it was well set up and, it actually sounded decent.
All right. Before you get further, I want to talk about the Fender acoustic for just a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's a woman that comes to open mics. She's really talented, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, one of those free spirit.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know how to stay on the microphone.
Right.
She sings like
you got to use a lot of compression.
Yeah. Because you never know. She's 8 feet back.
It's like, well, 10-1, here it is.
Yep. So anyway, but she's got this acoustic that Fender only put out for a year back in 89 or 88.
Right.
So Fender did this acoustic that was, now you call it the Acoustasonic. They did it before, and I knew they did it before.
What, you mean the Stratacoustic or the Teleacoustic?
Teleacoustic.
Yeah, no, those were all over the 90s. Those were not like, they were around for a long time.
No, they were made in Japan. Try to find one.
No, I know, but they sold a bunch of those. Dude, I was playing Strat.
Oh, yeah.
I used to play them when I go into Sam Ash when I was in high school.
But I thought it was high for a minute. I was like, didn't they make one of those?
Yeah.
Anyway, she brings one in. It's in great shape. right? She's got the original case and everything. And she's like, oh, yeah, I've had it since it was brand new. I'm the original owner. I just thought that was pretty cool. And it sounded to me, because there's a guy trying to sell an Acoustasonic, so he brings it to the open mics. To me, hers sounds better.
Well, that's because hers is a real acoustic guitar, and his is sort of an acoustic guitar. Like it couldn't figure out what they were doing there.
So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so I watched the other performers. One guy slays. The guy after him is a great singer. All of these people are singer-songwriters, right?
Right.
I'm like, oh, great.
Most of these people are going to be that.
So I'm a songwriter, but I'm not a singer. You know what I mean? Like, right. I don't even, I literally do not write lyrics to a lot of my music, and I probably should start, but, anyway, I get up there, and, I'm like, what am I going to do here? I sat around and mulled it over for like 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, well, I could do something crazy. I could try to play like Cult of Personality or something, right? And on an acoustic guitar, which nobody's seen before, right?
Right.
And dude, I'm so flabbergasted with the fact that I'm playing acoustic guitar. I get like 2 bars in and I'm like, no, this isn't going to work. So then I stop and I'm like, all right, everything's in tune. You know, I'm going to professional the shit out of this, right? So I'm like, everything must be in tune. Now it's time to play the real song. So I ended up playing like Whipping Post, and this is all instrumental, of course, because here's the reason why it's instrumental. Like, Jessica. I was thinking about it, I was like, I could have played that song and sang it. But the thing is, he turned the microphone down because I told him I was probably going to be playing instrumental. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll just wing it. And then I like made up 2 songs or 3 songs on the fly. It was bad. It was really bad. It was so bad that I don't even think the people who were paying attention to me actually knew what was going on. And finally get to the end of it, I'm like, here, just take this from me. and walked off and hung my head in shame.
Now you know. Bring your Kemper.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. Like, I just made the dumbass assumption that they would have something for plugging an electric guitar in, right? Now I don't. I told them, I was like, next week I'll come, I'll have my Kemper, and I'll have my looper that I can run to the input, the auxiliary input on it, and then run that out to the board. And I said it should be fine, be gravy. So I have every intention of going back, and I actually recorded 2 new songs, 2 new backing tracks. And gonna be playing those songs, but it was such a debacle, and it was not any fault other than my own. Like that, I want to stress that this wasn't because they were unprepared or anything like that. I was unprepared. I should have tried to call ahead. I shouldn't have last minuted it, because that was the other thing. That afternoon, I'm not gonna go. It's the first night. Like there's gonna be nobody there. My wife comes home. She talks to me. She says, you need to go. And I said, why? She goes, because if you don't go, they may not have it anymore. And I'm like, that's a good point. So
that's true.
I literally threw everything in a bag and just threw it in the back of my car. And had I had the forethought, I probably would have at least had my Katana head in the trunk, because I could at least run the direct out off of that. I honestly don't have much with cabinet emulation anymore. I mean, I have, the Kemper, and that's pretty much it.
Well, and the Katana head. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and the Katana head's not going to stick around forever. So that's only a matter of time before I decide that thing has got some money in it for me that I might need for something else.
You know what's funny? So I have the Katana and I have my Marshall. The only amp I have sitting in this room with me is that little Roland Cube. Because I go to so many open mics and practice and stuff,
dude,
that I just don't bother unpacking everything. And it's bad. It is bad. And I'm saying it's bad because then I'm not playing with my pedal board the way I should be. Then I get to practice, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to step on that. I'm supposed to step here.
Dude, so I sat down with my set list day. I realized something about the lock function at Kemper that made me realize I had to redesign my set, right? So I sat down and I redid all of my presets for the Kemper. And it took me about 2 hours today, because I did one per song, which meant I basically dialed in like 1 amp sound, maybe 2 amp sounds. And then I had to dial in the effects, and actually the effects took longer than everything else. And to kind of plan things out. And it was, I came to the realization that this is probably the way I should be handling it anyway. It's literally just one patch per song for this stuff. Stop trying to virtual rig the whole thing where it's like, oh, I can turn these stomp pedals on, off here and there. Just go right through it, and then just right to left, whole thing, or left to right rather, the whole thing, just like it up, down, left, right. Like we'll do it the Konami code, and go right through the whole shenanigans, because it just makes more sense to do it that way, and also because there's just too much. I got too much going on now. Now that I'm doing these tracks and stuff, and I'm getting ready to record a record, and I'm like dead set on doing that, and I'm working through the project. I'm 5 songs in to what will probably be a 10-song EP or something, and I realized that I can just use the same tracks I use in the studio. Mm-hmm. But that leads me to some other things. So there's a bunch of other cables on my desk right now. I have you can't see it. I got a MIDI cable here. I've got that's running into my interface. I got another USB cable, a 1/4 inch, and power. Because the way I'm actually using the Kemper now, so I record a direct in from the Kemper. So it's just my direct guitar signal through the FET buffer on the front end of the Kemper into the interface. That's going over a 1/4 inch cable. Right. From the Kemper to the interface. Then I also have, and by the way, that cable's real short, so there's like no signal loss. But I also have MIDI running into it. And what I'm using the MIDI for when I'm doing recording is I'll actually have, so I'll just be playing the track. I try to do things in as few takes as possible, so I will automate my patch changes. I will automate my effects on and off, and any sort of that kind of shenanigans. Just so that I know that, here's the song, this is what I'm going to do. And that happens because I build, 2 or 3 scratch tracks. So what I do is I say, okay, so this chorus I'm going to turn on a Univibe. So I'll record the Univibe separate as, just the chorus by itself. And they'll combine it all together. And then I play along with that. Yep. And I automate all my effects that I change in each little sections. And that's how I go through the whole process. But it's leading me down this other path. I've been toying with the idea of doing a multimedia show. And that was something that I think we mentioned on the show before, something in the back of my mind. I have no idea how I'm going to get together the video footage and the photographs to do this, but it's something I'm thinking about doing.
But you can do it.
I most certainly can do it.
You can do it.
Yes.
And that would be so cool because you could time code the MIDI.
Right. I don't have to change effects
that.
anymore. Then I could just take the Kemper. I don't even need the remote. Right. Put it on the floor.
That's right.
Plug MIDI in for my laptop. Run the whole thing off my laptop. Including a projector. So, this is something that may happen. It's something I'm toying with the idea of. I might do it just as a hobbyist thing, just to prove I can. But
more and more of the lighting systems are coming with MIDI controllers.
Right.
And there's more and more of those, like you were talking about, those projection systems that have MIDI control. So you just stick a USB or whatever.
It's not. I don't even necessarily know that you need a projection system.
Did you send MIDI to your laptop?
Yeah. I mean, you just get a MIDI interface for your laptop, which any audio interface actually would be optimal. Yeah. Because I could, and I know there are people doing it this way, where you'll take out I got this PreSonus box underneath my desk, right? So in a couple of years when I retire this thing, maybe this goes into this kind of service, I'll rack mount it, right? With a laptop. It'll have, it's got 8 ins, 8 outs, right? So I can feed 8 separate channels out to the PA. And each of those channels can be used to do, whatever I want, basically, to have fed to the PA and mixed whatever way I want. And then I'll have a cheapy projector. It doesn't have to be anything crazy because you're playing in a darkened room anyway. And a screen. And then that will play the video material. And it'll all just come off the laptop. It'll literally be a VGA cable from the laptop to the display. Right. And all of that will be handled by Cubase because Cubase can do video. Or Nuendo or whatever their application I end up using. But almost all of them can do video now. Even if at the worst, I could do it in Premiere. And I don't want to do that, but I could.
But you could.
And basically just hit play. If you're doing in-ears, which that would be optimal way to do this, you're going to get a click, click, click in your in-ear because you're going to have it coded into the audio track, and then you start. And everything will be synchronized with whatever you're doing. Because
that'd be the smart way to do it.
And if you're using Ableton Live, you can even tap tempo. So if you want to slow things down and you actually want to have control over it, you could control it.
You can tap tempo,
which makes it even scarier because now it's like, where do we go from here? You can make these crazy synchronized performances that are part of, like you're actually controlling it.
I can tell you right now, I know solo artists who are doing this in Long Island. They're doing it in Florida.
It's becoming more popular.
A lot of the beach guys, they're just, they're the singer-songwriter. It's different for you, but I do know a guy who does a lot of, I don't know if he does Steve Vai or he does his own thing, but he goes out and that's what he does. He's been doing it for years. He's got that, and he goes,
yep.
And then he goes.
I don't want to be the dude that plays the tracks all the time. However, I will say this much. Jim, you've heard some of the stuff I'm playing. Do you think your average drummer is going to be like, yeah, I can get down on that? Like,
no.
I mean, there's some stuff that's like, it's really challenging.
Right.
And I grew up with people that could play it, but now those people are all gone. Like, many of them have moved and they're doing music in other places.
Right.
So for me, the means to an end here is to go out with tracks, play as many open mics as I can, meet as many people as I can, find some people that can actually keep up. Even if they can't keep up, collaborate with those people to create something that's a little bit more marketable. And
now,
yeah,
I'm gonna talk to the other side of that. So I went to open mic Tuesday last week, and what's interesting is the guy Mike Goldberg, who is now a member of the group, he was there and he was hosting it.
Uh-huh.
Now, he brought all the gear. He owned all this gear. And I'm not kidding you when I tell you there was probably $25,000, $30,000.
It looked like it.
Equipment on
yeah, I saw the video. I was like,
if not more.
Yeah.
He's got a $30,000 camera system he uses for doing his podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking. So anyway, and he says, and you're pulling it off with a camera. Shut up. So anyway, I was telling him because he wanted some of my video and stuff. So we're talking away. Anyway, he had his musicians on there. The drummer, she could hear the track. She could hear the
click and everything.
And she'd bring them in, and he had live musicians doing everything. So he was on keys. He had another keyboard player. He had 2 guitar players. Actually 3, but 2 at a time. And he brought up a harmonica player and a singer. Next, I'm looking forward to it because October 1st, he's bringing in a horn band thing. He's doing it again, doing a full-on horns. And so it's the exact, it's what you did. His lights were timed,
right.
Their thing, and you did the MIDI stuff going on. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the horn band is going to bring us because that's what the next thing is.
That's really cool.
But he's doing what you're doing. I mean, you're doing it solo, but he's doing it to keep everybody.
Yeah. I don't have a click. Like, I'm literally listening to the monitor mix. And to be honest with you, I understand why people want the click, especially in a big, in a big setting where you got 25 people on stage or something crazy like that. I could totally see the benefit of having that. But for just one person, the click is not necessary. It really is. Because unless you're a drummer, I suppose. But if you're going to go out...
you got to keep in time.
Right. But if you're going to go out, you're just going to play you got drums and bass behind you, and you have reasonably good time, you should...
There are times when you're going to freeform over that.
Yeah, and I do that. I do that as well. But, I mean, my biggest fear with doing the tracks thing is that... I'm going to lose my chops for improvisation. That scares the living bejesus out of me.
Not if you make tracks that you can improv.
No, and I'm doing that, but the thing is, you're not reacting to the other, because the players don't change. Like, every time I play, it's going to be slightly different if it's a real player, right? But
yeah,
that's the thing I'm worried about losing. It's like, now I'm just going through the motions. It's very mechanical. And it does feel different on stage. But like
Yeah.
that last performance I did where I actually played the tracks where I really was able to ham it up and do some different things. It's still fun and it's still different because, again, I make it different. Like I have sections where I'm just making stuff up as I go, but it's not the same as like going to a blues night and just playing like off the cuff 12
and
bar.
they're two different, they're two different art forms. How many people out there know somebody who can play great to a track and cannot play with people? How many people know somebody who can play the intro to 450 songs, can't play one all the way through?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact is that there is a certain, of that with you. You were talking about the track thing. The click helps people who, like let's say you're on stage with Shania Twain.
In between songs, it's great. But even then, they like to count off. So like they'll tell you got like it'll say like 1 minute, and then you'll have like 1 minute, and then it'll say right before it says 15 seconds, and then you'll hear bump bump bump, and then you're in. Like that's it. Once that downbeat starts, you better be ready.
Yeah. But there's songs like during the song, somebody will like let's say they're playing a fiddle.
Yeah.
Part, but they've only got this little fiddle part.
Yeah.
Great big song. So they're up there with the dancers and they're doing their thing, and then their part is in,
right?
And then they're out. But they gotta know because they're also doing choreographed stuff. They're supposed to be on markers during certain points.
Yep. I've even seen, I forget whose show it was. I was watching some on YouTube, and there was a counter on the side of the stage, and the counter was like a clock to let them know, hey, you got to be back on, in 45, in 45 minutes to do this, little part, so you can go do your thing backstage, go have a bite to eat, then come back out for your part at the end. And it was like that kind of got me because I'm like, well, we're getting to the point where it's like, we don't really need to, because it used to be like bands would hire, they would hire a stage manager or they would hire a director to make sure all those things were happening. They don't do that anymore because you don't need it, especially not a band. Like if you're just gonna play music, it's all this other thing. So, I don't know. I got to work on this whole idea of like not giving into doing everything via tracks and like not continuing this forever. That's not my intention. That never was. I have to write this material. I'm an artist. I have this like compelling desire right now to write. And I don't really have, this is kind of weird. I don't really have like this gravitas, like I need to write this, but I need to write. And so I'm going to do it. And I'm going to make a bunch of tracks and they're demos. And then I'm going to put an EP of demos. And then I'm going to use this EP of demos to go hire some people or meet some people. And then we're going to make these songs for real. And I'd like to get into an actual studio and do it for real. So I got to find the right people and I got to get in front of the right people too. But I'm too old. I'm looking at my situation. I'm going, I'm too old for stardom at this point. Like that's not where I'm headed. I don't know where I'm headed. I don't know where this leads. And that's another scary aspect of this whole thing.
Well, you think about it. So I mentioned somebody tonight already, Todd Rundgren.
Right.
So Todd Rundgren, on his albums, Todd Rundgren albums, he was the band.
Yeah.
He was everything.
He played everything.
Drums, keys, horns.
Well, believe me, I'd rather have actual musicians than me programming shit. That's what I'm getting at. I've been cursing a lot this episode. I apologize, everyone.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even hear you curse, but I didn't pay attention. But I mean, the truth of the matter is that there is a, there's a balance that we have to do of playing with other people and playing, to tracks. I have been the exact opposite. I have not been doing enough chop stuff lately, just doing open mics and, of course, the church stuff. So now I'm sitting here going, my chops are dying because I'm just doing reactive music and, and there's nothing wrong with reactive music. Certainly nothing wrong. But when you're up on stage with somebody and they take a solo and they forget to give you one,
Yeah.
it, it happens a lot. It happens a lot at open mics, guys. Especially if you're, and I'm.
I like to take it
It's
away
gonna sound
from
like
people.
I'm bragging, but it sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm going to do this. So I'm up there and I sing really well, and because of that, people always put me in a position where I'm the lead singer, when I'm playing rhythm guitar, but I'm not playing solos because they don't get their time in the spotlight. They feel like, hey, you just had yours. It's my turn.
Right.
And so now it's kind of like, okay, you're your Angus, but I'm Brian Johnson. But problem is, I want my minute as Jimmy Page too. You know, I want to be able to do that. And so I gotta tell you what happened. One of my open mics. So somebody looked me right in the eye, right, and they were looking across from me, and there was another open mic person sitting next to me, and they said, while they were looking at me, they go, "You are the reason we come out here. We love your voice. We love hearing you sing." And the person next to me said, "Oh, thank you very much."
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So later, when that person was not there, they came up to me and they go, "You do know we were talking to you, right?"
Yeah, you're like, yes.
Yeah, I got it. But sometimes the ego is so big, there isn't room for both of them.
I'm a friendly guy. When I go to an open mic, like I'll talk to people who are sitting around me and stuff. Like, and it's been weird lately because I've been doing this a lot more than I ever have, and some people are friendly, other people don't want to talk. Yep. They don't want to talk to you. Like, I don't know what
I'm lucky. Most of the open mics, I haven't been to an open mic. I can tell you this though. I go to this blues jam thing, and the host of that is not.
I've been to several where they're like, they have.
He's like, yeah, well, we're doing blues and we're being paid to do a blues jam, so I really can't let you do that song.
Yeah, I know, and you know what it is. That's not really what that is. Do you know what that actually is? This asshole is holier than thou, and he thinks he's really good at what he does. And more often than not, when I've seen people act like that at blues jams, which, by the way, I've been to a couple where people have been like that, they're not very good. Okay?
Right. He's okay.
They might be good to like the average listener, but somebody who actually knows that style of music, they're going to listen to him and they're going to go, "The hell is this?" Like, you get to your blues lessons on the back of a Cracker Jack box? Like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah. And the word cracker should be
totally
used.
Yes. Cracker, porch honky, whatever racial slur you want to use. I can use them. I'm white.
Right. He's definitely the whitest blues guy you've ever met. And he has that rhythm. It's pretty bad. You know, you get
my wife was giving me crap. I had to mute the microphone. She looks at me and she goes, "David Michael." Yeah, I did it. I did.
Yeah.
My nickname in high school is Cracker. So,
hey, I know that I have the whitest feel in the world. It's like that scene in The Jerk when he gets up and he's like, "I found my rhythm," and that's me.
No,
I don't have a good rhythm when it comes to blues. I know that I don't.
I was giving myself crap because I was getting ready. I was going to go to a blues jam tonight, actually. And it would have been over by the time the show started, but I decided not to. I was out all day today doing some other things, and frankly, I just didn't feel like going to play a blues jam tonight. The other thing is, like, I hate going to these places and not having money to buy food, and this place is a steakhouse, right? So I'm like, I really don't want to do that, because then I'm going to be, like, buying a baked potato or something, you know?
You're that guy drinking a water.
Yeah, that is me.
No
that
ice
is me, though. But I don't drink, and usually Cokes at bars are pretty bad. So
terrible. You get your bill, it's $8.
Well, no, it just doesn't taste good. Like and
it had no flavor. They always put ice in it, and 50-50 shot of whether or not it's got flavor or it's got the carbonation.
Right. So anyway, I was just thinking about the fact that, you know, this blues jam I was going to go to tonight, and I was talking to my wife on I guess it was Friday night. We were doing laundry. And she heard me playing and whatever, and I said, you know, I don't really feel like I'm good at the blues. Like, I don't like going to those jams because I always feel like I'm putting myself on the spot, and I don't feel like that's my genre of choice. So I walk in there, and even though I can play it, I feel like I'm going through the motions, and I don't feel it as much. But then, like, there are times where I do feel like I can play it, and I do a really good job, and it's all emotional. But I was complaining about it. Of course, my wife comes downstairs and she says, yeah. She's like, yeah, can't play blues my ass. Like, that's literally what she said to me. And then she just rolled her eyes and walked out of the room. Like, shut up. Like, now, so I probably should have gone tonight, but I've been in those situations like what you were describing, Jim, where the guy's like, no, it's not 12 bar. We're not doing it, kind of thing. And it's like, well,
yeah,
you know,
first of all, those are the people that play boring blues.
Yeah.
They're the ones that when folks like somebody like me walks in and goes, all sounds exactly the same to me, because it does, because they don't know how to put feel in it. Those guys, I'm talking about those guys that don't know how to put feel into it, they do make it sound all like it's...
Yeah, it's all... Right, it's just a straight shuffle all night long. And I don't...
It's just a straight 3/4 shuffle.
I had this crazy idea when I was a teenager. Right in my first band, I was like, we're gonna make a modern, not modern blues, but like a futuristic blues record. So this whole idea that we would take these blues ideas, like do a song with only one chord, and we would do them in a futuristic way. And so we would have delay and all this crazy stuff going on. And actually it was okay. The record wasn't bad. We actually did end up making it. I don't feel like we really set out, we accomplished what we accomplished to set out. But I kind of feel like that's where we need to be going with the blues right now. And I'm gonna be a hypocrite this episode. I am gonna do it. I've been listening to more Joe Bonamassa lately, and I have to say, there ain't a whole lot of 12 bar in Joe Bonamassa. Okay, there's a lot of other stuff, but there ain't a whole lot of 12 bar. And right. I think that speaks to, like, how are you going to reinvigorate this music?
Right.
We've been doing 12 bar blues for the last, 100 years. It's time for us to find something new and to start building songs that have more than just those chords, but have that at its root. So use some dominant sevenths and use it in other progressions. Use a 2-5-1 every once in a while.
Exactly. Well, all the great blues players had that. They had those moments. Where
like Freddie King. Go listen to Freddie King is one of my favorites. And if you go listen, he very rarely did 12-bar blues.
Right. I mean, if you listen to, like, Couldn't Stand the Weather from Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand what the underlying sequence is, but
he was stretching it to its limit.
Top of it. He was that was really good stuff. And I mean, and it doesn't have to be just that. Listen to Hey Joe.
Just the amount of tritones he was putting in his music. Well, that's the other guy. That's the guy I point at, though, all the time. It's like, Jimi Hendrix is the one that did it. He did it 50 years ago, 60 years ago. Right. He created this form of music that is based on the blues, but it is not the blues. And
no.
Arguably so. I think a lot of blues musicians now lay claim to him, like, that's the guy, But then they're still doing the stuff that he was doing when he was growing up, Like, they didn't learn from him. They didn't branch out and explode. Now, there are players that do. I mean, there's Philip Stacey and there's Greg Koch is another good example. But a lot of people consider Greg Koch a jazz guitarist.
And I don't.
He's definitely more on the bluesy side.
He's got
chops in both ways because he's a big Kenny Burrell fan. That's a big part of that.
But he's the kind of guy. He's like Tommy Emmanuel. He can play.
He can play whatever.
So many
wants.
Parts at once.
Nobody's going to tell him not to play what he does. What he plays. Like he's just like, here, watch this.
Yeah. When Joe Bonamassa says, "Hey, can you come up here and play with me?"
If Bonamassa invites you on stage, you're probably doing something right. Okay. He had what? So let's run down the list of people I've seen lately on stage with him. Greg Koch, which he gets to play with him every time he's in town now. Who's the other guy? The guy that kicked his addiction. The one that's
Eric.
I can't remember his last name. Eric Gale.
Gale.
That guy can play.
I almost said Sales.
Now I had Jim and I have had some conversations about it. He's not my favorite player in the world. Now I'll explain why. He had a bad drug problem, and it's sad that he was like very hit or miss for a while. And he's a savant in a lot of ways. Like he's an incredible player. He's incredibly gifted in a lot of ways, but it just seems like his personality is where he's lacking. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't know how to interact with people in the right way. Like I've seen him in interviews, and it's kind of like he comes off in this very strange way. And I think it's just, people who are often good at one thing are deficient at something else. And I feel like that's what Eric Gale is struggling with.
Now that said, he's an incredible.
Other players who play with Bonamassa, Philip Stacey has been on stage with him recently. Who else? I know Mayer's been on stage with him before. But I mean, it's a who's who.
People give Mayer crap, but that guy took blues, and he has done things with it again that is not standard 12-bar blues.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think anything that I don't think everything that Mayer does qualifies as blues though. And that's a big
because he does a lot of major jam bands.
It's really hard for me to look at Bonamassa and any of the music he does as anything more than like blues or blues rock. Like almost everything fits into that like very neat little package. Even his work with Black Country Communion is this very like neat little package. Whereas somebody like John Mayer, who did the Continuum record, I don't really think that counts as electric blues.
No, there was some.
There's definitely some. And there's threads of that in everything, but that's true of any genre of music. I mean, now, so here's the thing that's going to blow everybody's mind, right?
But see, I knew that. Let me before we get off the blues, I knew that I grew up on pop music. Okay, and so I know that my sensibilities just aren't there. I mean, I know how to come in on the and. But there's a magical place between the and the swing, and it's that magical place that I can find, but I don't know how to do it enough to make it my own. I'm literally just mimicking what somebody else did before me. I couldn't do it on my own. So, like, let's say I was singing "Superstition," right?
Yeah.
By Stevie Wonder.
That's very superstitious.
Very superstitious. You should wash your face and hands. So anyway,
writings on the wall, man.
Yeah, that's right. Writings on the wall. When I play that song, or when I sing that song, and I play it, you can tell my playing is just robotic. To me, most people will come up to me because they don't know any better. Like, man, it's such a great song, and I know that I botched the play.
Yeah, I've never run into that. Like I
can swing the field.
Feel like I can just like go for it,
vocal,
and that's another part. This whole recording.
That's another thing. That's another reason I can't. I bought all this Jimi Hendrix books.
Yeah.
Right, and I sit there. And
because you're trying to play it like sheet music. Stop playing it like sheet music.
I'm playing ring, ding, ding.
No, you gotta just play it and like play it hard and. Stop. The musical notation on the page should literally be, where it says like allegro or whatever, it should just say like hard or like angry or like soft and gentle.
Like Machine Gun. I love Machine Gun.
That should say mechanical, like a machine gun,
So bad.
Like Machine Gun. I don't know. I'm going to blow everybody's minds here for a minute. I know that people lump blues into its own genre and jazz into this other genre. I don't think there's any distinction. I know people are going to like blow up and be like, no, they're totally different because there's all these different freaking chords and stuff. But at its core, blues and jazz share the same roots. Okay?
Right.
So it's really hard to say that they're different forms of music. Although, I would say that blues is more like the aggressive, like punk music version of what jazz is, which is like taking all of those slave songs and then putting classical music with them.
What I picture jazz is, what I always tell people when it comes to jazz is I say, yeah, jazz is blues if it went to college.
Yeah, actually, it very much is. And but you talk
because now it learned some.
But
new
you
words.
talk about the same things though, right? Like so, there's swing feel and like those kinds of things make up those pieces of music, and so I just don't see them being that different. They're different skill sets for sure, but they're at worst kissing cousins. I mean, and I struggle with jazz more than I do with blues, and it's because I don't have the theory knowledge that I need to make competent jazz. I can fake it. People don't know I'm faking it. But
well, there's a reason they call them the fake book.
Yeah,
buddy.
they don't know I'm faking it until like a real jazz guy shows up and he's like, "Really, dude? You played melodic there. You should have played Lydian." Like I'm like, "Shut up! Don't make me feel bad."
Yeah, exactly. You played harmonic mile when you should have been playing.
Yeah, right. You're like,
shut.
What? Whatever happened to just playing what you feel, right?
That's.
And so I feel every time I get asked to do like a jazz standard, it's like, yeah, I know what you're asking.
Can you play Autumn Leaves?
Yeah. No. I probably actually can play Autumn Leaves. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, you can.
I know I can play like Take 5 and stuff like that. I'm a big Dave Brubeck fan, but
Ricky, don't lose that number.
Yeah, well, Steely Dan's that's a whole other thing.
Steely Dan and Jethro Tull moved the standards of music into a whole new realm that hadn't been. I mean, you take Chicago, right? What you think about the later Chicago, hard for me to say. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah,
right.
I'll give you that. But you take that early Chicago stuff, 25 or 64. Anybody know what time it is? That stuff, and you listen to that early stuff, and you hear Chicago, and when they were called Chicago Transit Authority,
CTA.
before they changed their name, they were incredible. And of course, guys like I said, Jethro Tull built upon that, and some people would call them, I guess, a melodic rock with a prog sense. And then of course you had the guys from Steely Dan who then took it into even another dimension. They took what Chicago did and they said, okay, we're going to make it even further. And of course, Alan Parsons was out there doing his
What
thing.
Steely Dan did was they looked at people like Thelonious Monk, and they looked at like John Coltrane and those kind of guys, and they're like, and I'll give you another band that did the same thing that people never recognized for it. They looked at these like hard jazz bop guys, right, from like the 40s and 50s and 60s, and they were like, okay, we're gonna make music like that, but we're gonna make it sellable, and that's what they did. And they were great at it, and that's why they sold so many damn records. I mean, I can't like the Royal Scam, for example. That record is so good. And I mean, honestly, like there was like a 6-month period in my life where that's all I listened to. And it's because it's so complicated. Like it's not standard pop music. Like you're not going to find a 13 chord, or a major 13 chord in most pop music. It's just not there.
Right.
Okay.
Or 3 time signature changes in 3 bars. That's what. So, Mike Goldberg, the guy, I'm referring to him again. He was talking about how he played with Mahavishnu.
Oh yeah,
and he was like, I'm going to show you something that I wrote here, and it was like, the timing, literally the time signature went 1 time signature, 2 bars, another time signature, and then another, and then back.
Yeah. So, and that's only because the Mahavishnu Orchestra wasn't working in Western music, right? The way that they were composing was using the Indian classical music system of designing these rhythms and melodies. So the way that works is like you have these little preset like rhythms, and there's like 200 and something of them, and you memorize them all. And then when there's literally a language that goes with it, and when they get up on stage or like they're about to play, they literally like click out the beats with their tongue, and then they're all like, okay, we know what we're doing, let's go for it. And sometimes these figures can be like 127 beats long. And you're just sitting there going, how in God's name do you remember that?
That's what I was going to say. How did they click it off? When I listened to that song, and I wish I would have recorded that one because that was the one they opened with. I wasn't expecting anything, and it was like, pow.
Dude, I love Mahavishnu too. Like, Now You Know and stuff like that. Dude, that band. Jan Hammer and like the whole,
Yep.
yeah, dude.
Yep.
So that's a band that I kind of grew up on. Like I listened to a lot of Mahavishnu Orchestra, but I know people look at that and they go, that's fusion. That stuff is as jazz as it gets. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's Indian music too, on top of that. It's Indian classical
Right.
music played with Western instruments.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of what we were trying to achieve, except with jazz. And I feel like we failed miserably at it comparatively. I mean, but it's
Right.
something I want to keep alive. It's something that's in the back of my mind. So the idea would be like, I guess now, if I was going to do it again today, I would probably take a group of people and we would play improvisational music that would be kind of like blues in nature, but it would be like an actual band playing it and mixing with these like electronic elements that you find in people's music like Peter Gabriel and stuff like that, because I think that really speaks to the future. Kind of like mixing dubstep and blues, or something weird like that.
Here's a name you never think of when you think of like jazz chords and weird time signatures. Paul Simon.
Yep. Because he's basically an ethnomusicologist. I mean, he's super into world music, and so is Peter Gabriel. And like if you go to these other places like Turkey, that's how you get things like these crazy 7/8 and 9/8 time signatures that these people are playing these melodies and stuff in.
See, I was lucky enough that being in the Navy, going over to these places.
Well, I'm sure you heard some crazy stuff because
Oh yeah, and you know what's funny is these same people, instead of being like American jazz guys and American guys who are like, your music sucks, they would say, do you know, and they would say like, I remember once I was asked to play the Eagles, Hotel California.
Yeah, you're like,
or I would be asked to play.
You're like,
you're kidding me, right?
After what you just did, you're asking me to do this because what we do is hard for them,
right?
Even though what they do
is
so easy, or like so easy for them, and it's like we look at it, we're like, oh hell no, like
because they grew up in that. I mean, I got to go to the Middle East, and I got to see and experience and listen to so much incredible music all around the world. Up in Norway and Russia, and
I mean, I don't think people understand that this world is orchestrated by music. I mean,
obviously Africa many times.
If you go to Africa and you go into a post office in Africa, you will find that they're singing a song in the post office. Yeah. Everybody, and the reason for it is they use that rhythm to drive how they actually work. So the guy hands the guy a package, and it goes on the beat. So they know they got to be ready to receive it. And it's just, and it's not even something that they do consciously. It's something that like they've done their whole life. And so this is, but we're just going to do it.
We as Americans.
We did at one point. We don't anymore.
We did. People used to want to sing to work, and they wanted to, but we've gone to a different kind of work. And it's almost like, and we're bubbling in more and more in our work. We're becoming more and more cubicalized. Now, there's a lot of places where you go to a place and you don't hear, I think I've mentioned this before, you don't hear radio at work.
I'm in that place. And
my boss has asked me 100 times, why don't you go into the office more often? I'm like, why? I go in there and all I hear is this.
It's a tomb. Yeah.
And then I hear somebody go.
Yeah, dude, if we made noises like that in our office, we get noise complaints. I'm not kidding. Yeah. It has gotten so PC in the office place, like it's not a surprise why nobody listens to music in the office anymore. Because if I listen to this song, that's going to offend this person, and then all of a sudden we're all in trouble, and we're all in HR's office because of harassment. And so on Wednesdays, it's pretty dead in the office. Like I'm the only guy on my team there, and we have like this little area that's specifically for us, and so I'll put on my phone, and I intentionally keep it quiet because I know that any of the music I listen to is gonna piss somebody off. Like somebody's gonna complain, and I try to listen to benign stuff in the office. It's like I'm cranking up the Cannibal Corpse or anything, although I have. In fact, one day when we were moving, I had Cannibal Corpse and Ghost going in the office. I'm like, you can't get any more offensive than either of those. for the people who are religious, you have Ghost, and for the people who are, human beings, you have Cannibal Corpse.
Right.
But
But
it ended up
yeah,
it ended up going pretty well because there wasn't a lot of people around. But I understand where you're coming from. Like, we don't do that anymore. But I was gonna give some other examples. So there's a place in Sardinia where they have lots and lots of sheep, these massive herds of sheep, and it's very foggy in the mornings. And they had a problem. They've had a problem as long as the place has existed with people running sheep into each other and then losing sheep in the herds. That's a big issue. So they sing, and each family has their own note, right? And it's actually clashes with other notes, because when they clash, they get louder. And so they know, oh, I'm getting closer to this person. I need to take my sheep the other direction.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep.
But that's something that happens. And lots of societies all around the world use music in different ways than we do. We do it purely for enjoyment. Other places, it's functional. It's a requirement, because you'll break things if you don't.
Well, there's also, even if you go to the entertainment side of it, there's also a different use of music, in that it wasn't that long ago when money was made on music, not as a result of recording it, as a result of writing it and selling the writing, publishing rights, literally the publishing. And then it moved on to recordings, and it moved into, and it's morphed. Let's face it, MTV did a thing with music that
don't even know what it is now. At this point, I don't even understand the music business anymore.
Well, I was, this is what scared me today, and about some music is, so I was flipping through the channels, and unfortunately, it was really late. I got back from one of the open mics. So I'm on, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel. No, who's the guy that came from Saturday Night Live? Young kid. Anyway, does Bee Gees invitation stuff. Anyway, it was on his show, late show.
Fallon.
He did Fallon. Thank you, Jimmy Fallon. I know I had Jimmy, and I was like, not Jimmy Kimmel. Anyway, Jimmy Fallon, he had this rapper up there. She's in front of effectively a green screen.
Right.
Two people dancing behind her. Got a microphone. And she's just lip syncing to a track. And what's so bad about the lip, and then she's got a guy who comes on and does like a 3-second guest rap and literally walks off. And she doesn't even bother to keep the microphone up. Just brings it up for like one word at a time. She's like, what?
All right. Can we? So you talk about lip syncing.
But wait, it gets worse. So then I flip channels because I'm like, this sucks. Flip channels. Green Day. I'm kind of a Green Day fan.
Nope.
Okay, I can live with Dookie and all that stuff.
I'm gonna mute Jim. I don't want to listen to this.
Yep, here it comes. Billy Joe has now believed his own press, and so now he's lead singing, doing an Elvis thing, and so he's standing in front, and he's got another guy now playing his guitar, the broke down Gibson Jr. And he's got the rest of the band. The rest of the band is same guys. He's doing the Elvis type thing, and he's singing like it was real pop, not punk pop. There's nothing punk. The punkish thing, the punkest thing they did was he gave the finger to the camera, and they blurred it. That was the punkest thing he did the whole time. It was. I'm not going to say the song was bad because I kind of was, but I was like, I wish it wasn't Green Day.
All right.
I was like, I wish it was somebody else because it just doesn't feel like Green Day. That was.
I grew out of Green Day when I was like 13 years old.
I'm not saying I'm a big fan. I'm not going to.
I just want to. I want to preface why I was like, I hate this.
Right.
Green Day. So Green Day's a gateway band for me. Like that's how I got into like the Ramones, and that's how I got into Misfits and all these other bands that were before that.
Which are the bands that came from me,
right?
From my
so
the Dead
go
Kennedys,
from there backwards, and you find the real stuff, that actually like spawned all that.
Yeah.
And Black Flag and all those bands, whatever. But it was like, I wore out several of their records, right? Like Green Day. I had, because I was young and I that's all I listened to for like a while. And I can remember like, this is, I'm thinking this is real. This is, like this means something. And then like, at some point I realized, no, it doesn't. Like, this doesn't mean anything. This is literally some guy whining. Like, I'm friggin' tired of it already. And once I kind of grew out of the idea that like, oh, well, I know all the hooks and like this music's great. That's when I started to realize that the hooks didn't mean anything. And now, fast forward, right? So I'm in high school. Nimrod comes out. Like people are excited about that record. I bought a copy on Word from other people. And the funny thing is, the songs that I was like, well, this is going to be their big single, ended up being their big singles. Like what's the Good Riddance or whatever, the one that it's like the acoustic ballad thing. But I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Billy Joe cannot sing for shit. Like, he's awful. I would rather listen to Blink-182. Like,
I actually think he's taken some singing lessons.
I don't care if he's taking singing lessons. That just made so basically what you're telling me is he lost all the piss and vinegar. That's like, yep. One or the other, dude. You can't do both.
Okay, so yeah, so I want to get. I'm glad because we've kind of segued into the next thing I want to talk about with singers, and so for me, and put yourself in my shoes. So I grew up with the Sex Pistols and the Ramones.
Yeah, so you're seeing like this evolution,
and so this evolved into like the Clash was the beginning.
It's bad that I see this de-evolution, then, huh?
Yeah, I guess you could call it development. You're starting to pop the punk.
Yeah.
Right? The Clash started it. I mean, they didn't
the only other band in this group of people that I'm like, I don't like the Clash either.
The rock the Casbah thing,
yeah,
definitely.
Not a fan.
Moved them in that direction. Right? So then you had guys like Beastie Boys, who were trying to be a punk.
Yeah, I don't know what. I mean,
and then
I know people have said that, but like, I just see them as counter culture, not necessarily punk per se.
No. Before they became what we know as the Beastie Boys now, or even the Beastie Boys Fight for Your Right, they were a failing punk band. They were,
I believe it.
And then they dropped the instruments and became three guys rapping in front of them, and let somebody else play the instruments. So, and they kind of picked them back up for that whole sabotage thing. But that's all beside the point. The point is, you take a guy like Billy Joe and Green Day, even though they had pop sensibilities, I think the first two albums, they had pop sensibilities. They weren't trying so hard. They were that's why I think that it worked for someone of your age at that time, is because they were probably that age when they wrote those freaking songs. At least got them in their head. Yeah. Right? I mean, and that's the problem with.
Well, I don't even think the songs hold up now. Like, if I listen to them now, I'm like, huh, the hell was I thinking?
Well, because you aren't 13.
Well, I think it was just the fact that like this was music that, and this is the Young Rebellion thing. Like, this is music that my parents wouldn't listen to. That was kind of like that was going through my head, Yeah,
I mean, when I was a kid, nobody above the age of 25 was listening to Iron Maiden.
Yeah,
and so that now. You go to an Iron Maiden concert, and there's 70-year-olds.
That's the widest, most diverse audience you've ever seen in your life. It's crazy.
So I wanted to get to the singer thing. So, and the only reason I mention it is because there were two things that happened this week with me that I was like, okay, we got to talk about singers. And that was Sam Miller put up a post, and he said something about who's the worst singer in rock or pop or whatever. And I said Anthony Kiedis. And and I put Anthony Kiedis, fight me. And and then I'm going to explain that. And then the other day I saw a thing. It was one of those memorials about uh, Chris Cornell, who, by the way, I'm not saying he was a bad
No,
singer.
because
By
that's
the way. I think he was
I
a
would
great
fight
singer.
you on that one.
No, I think he's a great singer. It's just that I wouldn't put him on the pedestal these guys were putting him on. They were comparing him to like Robert Plant and
I
Freddie
don't know, dude.
Mercury and
I don't know.
people
For
like
that generation, he was the dude.
Well, no, and that's just it though, and that's where I want to talk about like for the generation, and this goes for guitar, this goes for the overall music, goes for the vocals, goes for whatever. You find a voice of the generation,
Right.
and I mean, I have people who say, "Oh yeah, Eric Clapton's voice was great." Like, no, Eric Clapton's voice was okay. It was all right? Was it great? Was it good? It wasn't great. You take a guy like Stevie Ray Vaughan, another one people say, "Oh yeah, his voice was great," and like I said, there is, but it fit what
And
it
I
was
think
doing.
that's what people really mean when they say it was great.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And so I'm not trying to downplay. Like Anthony Kiedis is great for what he does. I don't think anybody could have done what Anthony Kiedis did
Are
with
you
the
going to
Red
take
Hot
the next
Chili
step
Peppers.
and say that Chris Cornell was great at what he did, but not great as a singer? Because
No,
I will gladly
no,
disagree
I'm not
with
saying
you.
he wasn't. Again, I think he was a great singer.
Okay, all
I
right.
said
I'm
that
just
right
making
at the
sure.
beginning.
I got it. I'm drawing the line.
You guys can
I
rewind.
want to draw
and
the
listen.
line in the sand.
Go back,
No,
and you'll say,
well,
"Oh yeah,
I'm
Jim
just-
said he was a great
look,
singer."
I know there are people out there that would say that. They're like, oh, Chris Cornell was really not that great. Listen, when you hear people like Steve Vai saying, I wish Chris Cornell had been in my band, like, and I've heard him say that, and other people have said things like that over the years, and not to mention the fact the guy got a Bond theme, and it was the first good Bond theme in like 30 years.
Oh yeah.
You know, it doesn't take much more than that to convince me. He really was the best male Bond vocalist since, like, Tom Jones. I mean, when you really think about it. So I know people don't like the gravelly voice thing, but that was Soundgarden sound, and it was later on Audioslave sound, and those bands of those generations sold more records than damn near anybody else, save for like Nirvana, and let's face it, I know people love his voice, but he's the one that I would be like, yeah, really good in context, not good outside of context. Watch the Acoustic Unplugged show and just get his vocals centered and just listen to them. They're really bad. Not to mention his attitude and behavior towards people on the outtakes. Yeah, dude needs to be slapped. Well, he needs to be slapped. But he took care of that problem, so. Or Corey Love did, or somebody did.
Depends on who.
Somebody got him for being a jerk.
Conspiracy theorist you listen to. But I mean, and I look back, it hit me when Rick Ocasek passed away. So a lot of people think that Rick Ocasek was like the voice of the Cars.
Yeah, I mean,
and he wasn't really. It was Orr who was the voice of the Cars that most people think of when they think of the Cars. That's the guy who was singing Drive.
Yeah.
That's the guy who thinks,
Probably. I mean, actually, I think the signature stuff for the Cars for me wasn't just the voice, though. Like, it was the use of, like, the really ridiculous, like, cheesy synthesizers and the Telecaster stuff. Like, the little, like, kind of sort of country licks that were over everything. And
oh, yeah, that was definitely, what is it? Elliot
Easton really made that band for me. And in retrospect, like listening back, the stuff that isn't as guitar heavy, like in their later years, I didn't like it. I'm not a fan. No. But the first couple albums are great. I absolutely love them. And I think we've mentioned that I was listening to the Cars on this show before. We were doing our, what are we listening to right now kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel really bad about.
You take a guy that. The lead singer for this band.
That's a perfect example. Mick Jagger.
Perfect example of somebody.
Try to put him out of context.
Great for what he does. Yeah. But if you ever heard him cover Dancing in the Streets, just remember why he should just be singing Rolling Stone songs.
Well, you know what? Rolling Stones is like the drunken bar band, right? Like that's what they are. And you take the alcohol and the drugs out of Mick Jagger and all of that stuff, and like they don't sound right anymore. And I honestly think like he fits that because he's got that swagger. Like he's like the guy that you see that's like just had the bottle of Jack and he's getting up there to sing the second set. You know, you're like, what the hell? Like, how's this guy even standing up? That's what he sounds like, and it's perfect for that kind of music. But it's not. You're not going to ask this guy to sing opera. I mean, and you know, it goes both ways. There are some incredibly talented people that should not be singing some of the songs that they're singing either, like Tom Jones.
Or like when the heck's her name, the Canadian female singer did
Alanis Morissette.
Did the Titanic?
No,
did
Celine
the
Dion.
Titanics. Celine Dion. When she
thought
sang,
we were never going to talk about this on this
AC/DC. Just look up Celine Dion.
Oh God!
Doing,
I know what you're talking about. Oh no! Don't do it, Jim Ass. Just please don't.
Just listen to one bar of her singing it. She's
it's like
singing,
Sheryl Crow's
"You Shook Me All
Sweet
Night
Child
Long."
of Mine. Like
Cheryl,
what?
She did "Sweet Child of Mine." She also did "You Shook Me All Night Long." She didn't learn anything from "You Shook Me All Night Long."
She didn't shake me all night long.
It's terrible. Or Britney Spears singing "I Love Rock."
Or I Can't Get No Satisfaction.
Joan Jett is another one that her voice is gravelly and has this much range, but you know, you could write all of her vocals on one staff. You don't even need to go outside the staff. But what she does fits the music. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to try to. I guess it was kind of clickbaity for me to say that, you know, Chris Cornell.
Well,
because that way people can come, oh man, no, and then I mean,
it's just it's a good exercise though, because he's not everybody's cup of tea, but I can. Oh, I think people from that age group, like,
I don't like Audio Slave because I don't like what's his face on guitar. Oh, good.
You really
Lord,
not like Tom Morello?
Crap. No, but the rest of it I can dig. I just can't see Tom Morello. Oh wait, I can't play the guitar. Let me find a sound effect. Just say
he just plays some guitar. I mean, and now he's better than he was when he started Rage Against the Machine.
You gotta be.
He's been playing for
You've been playing guitar professionally for 25, 30 years. You better be better. But geez, but you take Chris Cornell, I can listen to it for Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
That's the thing that, you know, I think when you listen to his stuff, and of course the solo.
Well, then they cloned him, and now he's with Winery Dogs. Rich Kotzen.
Oh my gosh!
Have you heard him actually cover some Chris Cornell stuff?
Yeah, he does a good job.
They're clones. Like, there's no way. Like, they even had the same facial hair at one point. Like,
I know, right?
There's same DNA. It had to be.
Yeah, Kotzen wants to be Chris.
He'd like to be. He really would. Kotzen's a great guitar player, but you know what? He's following on the tails of somebody else. He always is.
That's it. He is. And the difference between Kotzen and Cornell, and I'm not taking away from Kotzen, is obviously extremely talented, very good. Cornell had a magic.
Yeah, he had the X factor.
He did. He would pick a note no one else would sing in a part that it was like, what am I going to sing here? And of course, it just came from here. I mean,
go listen to Black Hole Sun and listen to the brilliance of those lines. God. There's a reason people are playing that stuff on guitar. I mean, it's
and doing it wrong. But most of them. Black Hole Sun is just an amazing. I think that's one of the best written songs ever.
Yes.
I mean, it's just I didn't appreciate it at the time. I was pushing back because I wanted a different kind of. But you know,
it's easier to appreciate a band when they're gone. You know what I mean? Like when they dissolve and like they're kind of moved on and doing different things. Because then you can like go back and you'd be like, all right, so this is their entire body of work. Obviously, people really like this stuff. And then you can kind of like dissect it and go through it and be like, you know what? There is good stuff here. Or you can be like me with Nirvana and like go back and go through it in retrospect and being like, dude, I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand what people saw in this.
I still don't get it. But
good production.
There are things in it. Right. It's good production. I like Grohl's
Yeah,
playing.
the drumming
his
is good. Like, I will also say that
and some of
some of the songwriting is okay. I just don't think that, at least for my money, like, I would never. I'm not the guy that's going to tell you that Kurt Cobain knew how to play guitar. He had no idea what he was doing. He really didn't. And there's all these stories post his demise where it's like, oh, you should have heard the amazing stuff he was playing in the studio. And I was like, no, he wasn't. Shut up. Like, if he was, he would have been doing it on record, because that would have gotten his name out there. And I know people are like, oh, well, he didn't like stardom. He didn't like fame. Then why was he doing it? Like, the guy was a cry for help, right? He was, I'm going to use some of my own psychological background to talk about him, because, I mean, like, having dealt with some of these people that have similar issues over the years and seeing, like, people go through addiction problems and everything, he clearly did not know how to deal with fame, but I don't think he hated it. I think he hated it because he didn't know what to do with it once he had it. But it was like, this is where I want to go. Like, I want to play music, and I want to play music in front of me. Do you really think he wanted to play frat houses his entire, like, existence?
Right.
No way.
David Gilmour said the same thing. He said, we all sit and wonder, we want this fame and we want this fortune, and then we get the fame and we get the money, and we say,
now what?
I don't. Yeah. Now what? And this isn't.
Well, and that's the other thing, is, like, I don't think people really realize what that actually means. Like, the whole more money, more problems.
Giving up your privacy,
like, people don't realize you're going to have accountants. You're going to have a staff. You're going to have all these. Like, you're basically a business at that point. And I don't think somebody like Kurt Cobain, I don't think he dealt well with that. I think it was like, what do you mean I can't just, like, get up and brush my teeth, like, and do this and that? And of course, he was already on drugs, like, and that is a big part of his situation too. I think if he had gotten clean, I think he honestly would have made something of himself, because I do think he was in a place where, like, all of the pieces were going to click into place. Something was going to happen if he could have sorted the situation out. He had all the pieces of the puzzle. He just didn't have the one piece that mattered, which was his sanity. And that was chained to heroin.
It's too bad. It's sad. It's too bad. It is sad. And, no matter what you do, the people around him couldn't help him.
Can we segue? Because I have something I want to talk about with regards to Kurt.
Yeah.
So everybody knows about, like, the DOD pedals, right, from the mid-90s. I didn't know all the shenanigans behind that, and I guess Josh Scott did a video a while back where he was talking about the DOD pedals. It might have been recent. And he was talking about, I guess those were all those DOD pedals with the strange look and the weird labeled knobs all came from the mind of one person. And the DOD Grunge, which was the original, apparently they were selling like 8,000 units of that a month. Think about that. Now, most pedals might be selling 200 units a month in a boutique company. Somebody like Boss might be selling 2,000 or 3,000 a month of a hit pedal. They were selling 8,000 grunge pedals a month. And then
wow.
Kurt Cobain put it on his board, and he wasn't using it. So here's the little thing. His text said he put it on the board to bait people. But next to it, he had a Sans amp, the original PSA 1, and that was what he was using. But he would kick the he would throw the grunges into the audience or whatever at the end of the show, like, and that's how they got popular. And after he did this Guitar World interview where he's like, I use this for all my sounds and whatever, they blew up. They were selling 20,000 a month or some crazy number like that.
Wow.
Think about that for a minute. This guy clearly understood who he was, right? Like, he knew he was messing with people. And the only other person that I could think of that was like that was Jim Morrison. And if you think about it, this brings us full circle. Bands that don't get credit for the jazz chops and like the realization that they were going to mix rock and roll with, like, Miles Davis style jazz and stuff. The Doors. Because they even said it in interviews. multiple times. Like, well, yeah, we really like this the Kind of Blue record, and we decided that we were going to make like a rock record that was kind of jazz oriented and have that same energy. And they did it over and over and over.
Yeah.
So,
and they never
no,
repeated
they definitely did not.
I mean, they took there was one 3-chord 12-bar blues song that the Doors did. I mean,
It
when
was
you
like
really
one of their
look
biggest
at it,
hits too.
and it's huge,
Yeah.
right?
Um,
Until you get to the breakdown, the whole thing is straight up 12-bar.
so I'm a big Jim Morrison fan. I love his poetry. I can't listen to
Yeah.
it in the car anymore though because my kids are old enough to know that the C word is.
Oh yeah, you don't want
Um,
to. You've never listened then to the end of the.
oh
end
yeah, no.
when,
I know all
yeah.
about all that
with
stuff.
the kids in the car. No, I mean with the kids in the
I don't
car.
care. That is not sacred.
Oh.
That is not non-sacred. But the like his poetry when he just starts randomly spouting expletives like in random places just because he thinks it's funny. Like that's totally. I mean, that's the kind of avant-garde stuff I'm into. So I'm a big Jim Morrison fan, and so when I see people talk about his career posthumously, and they kind of poke fun, and they're like, well, they did like Roadhouse Blues, and I think people tend to forget that they really only had 2 hit records, maybe 3, depending on how you look at it, maybe 4, right? And they had like 6 or 8 records. So the ones that did really well were the first one, the self-titled, right, which had the end on it, and it had Break On Through and Light My Fire, right? So that record was huge. Every song on there was a hit. And then they had like 3 misfires. And then they had Morrison Hotel, which had Roadhouse Blues on it, so that blew up. And then they had L.A. Woman, which was that released posthumously? Because I know he was working on it. And then like he went back to Europe, and I don't think it was done when he left, and he died in Europe when he went back. Maybe it was finished. Maybe he did finish it before he went.
Yeah, for me it was the Doors, obviously, Strange Days, and then
so
L.A. Woman.
When those records came out, originally it was those 3 I mentioned were the ones that were hits. Those are the ones that did really well. When Jim passed, then
or Morrison Hotel, I forgot to mention
when
that
Jim
one.
passed, then people started going back and listening to Soft Parade, Unknown Soldier, like those other records, and then they started to sell really well. So those songs have hits on them, but they were posthumous hits, even though they'd already been released when he was alive, which is really interesting because I feel like, and I could be wrong on this, but I feel like a lot of the Kurt Cobain stuff that's popular was popular before he died. Like, it wasn't like there was some other material that people went back and took a longer gander at. People were pouring over it while he was alive.
No, it was already it was already popular.
Whereas
it wasn't like Hendrix, where Hendrix only had 4 albums?
Yeah, I think so. That's debatable. That's debatable because the last was alive.
Yeah, it is because you had.
That's just that's debatable. I don't know. And then of course there's all that posthumous material, which has long been discussed as whether some of that stuff is even him. And I don't know, man. Like I don't think anybody in music history has the controversy surrounding them that Kurt does. Now, I will say this: there's some interesting things, some comparisons between 60s and 70s and 90s music. And if you go back and you look at the 60s and 70s, like everybody was either a Beatles fan or they were a Rolling Stones fan, right? And then there was a third dark horse band, and that was the Doors, right? Because they were the American equivalent. Even though the Beatles were really competing in their early years, were competing with the Beach Boys. That was the American equivalent, right? And I think the Beach Boys saw that as a bigger rivalry than the Beatles did because they really weren't making the same kinds of music. So the reason why I bring this up is because, like, I've seen the comparisons between like the 90s bands and who they would represent if they were back in the 60s. So like a lot of people said Nirvana would be the Beatles. And I can kind of see that. Whereas like their music has a broad appeal. and it fits into some neat little boxes. But it's obviously more. You can't compare the mood and attitude of the music. It's definitely different, right? Whereas they've said like the Smashing Pumpkins would be the Doors of that time, and the argument is who's more influential, the Beatles or the Doors, and there's a lot of discussion about that. Personally, I would like to believe that the Doors are more influential. We got a lot of dark music. I would like to say that the Doors inspired, heavy metal bands and, all these like darker acts that have come and gone over the years. Even Paul Simon to an extent, people like that. Whereas I feel like the Beatles touched everybody in the sense that like they brought the pop sensibility. They definitely inspired all the pop music that came from that. But I just don't see any inspiration. Maybe it's because I just like can't like the music. I just don't see the Nirvana inspiration like spilling over into today's music.
No. I can see like that with a band like we were talking about earlier, like with Chris Cornell's music.
There's definitely some Soundgarden-esque stuff out there. Like I definitely hear bands that are experimenting with odd time mixers. Actually, I would argue even bands like Tool are kind of a contemporary of theirs, because when Soundgarden did that the Super Unknown record, like that's all odd time signature, like weird written songs, and it really fits in with like Perfect Circle and Tool. I mean, that's kind of what those records are too. Now, I'm not a huge Tool fan. I know that we have Tool fans in our Facebook group. I've never been able to get into that band, and it's
me either.
It's progressive, but like if I want progressive music, I'm going to King Crimson, and that goes like way beyond like where Tool's at,
Yeah. What's funny is that I said to somebody, I only know one Tool song, and I mentioned the song, and I said, no, that's not Tool.
That's funny. That's really, really
funny.
So I
know zero Tool songs.
No.
Off the top of my head, I can't name a Tool song.
Murder Dom's record from Perfect Circle, though, man, like when he put that band together, I was like, yeah, okay, I could get behind this.
I think the one thing that the Beatles did, and a lot of people are going to fight me on this one, but who cares? I think that the one thing that the Beatles did was they started out as a straight up pop act, right? And still they used some weird chords and they used some weird things because McCartney and Lennon were doing their thing. And of course, to put in perspective, folks,
they got way more interesting when they were on drugs.
George was like 16.
Yeah.
Okay, when they started the band, 15, 16. So he was a little kid, at that time. And so when you take the band and you move forward, they made decisions that other bands didn't make until way later. Steely Dan and Alan Parsons and stuff like that, not to tour. Because what they did was the Beatles said, nope, we're not going to tour anymore. We're just going to do studio stuff. And then they reinvented themselves. And then they reinvented themselves. And then they reinvented themselves one more time before they quit. I mean, if you look at those last albums, you've got, you no longer have that pop band that they used to be, and it's definitely, you could slice the albums up. You could say that's a John Lennon song and that's a McCartney song. Because this one's a little more out there because that's John Lennon. And this one's a little more pop sensible. That's McCartney. And so, yeah, you could take a song like Hey Jude, but who else had the guts at that time to go nah, 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 nah for like 5.5 minutes at the end of the song? And the whole idea of it was they said, you know what? We always wondered what were other bands doing when the song fades out? Because that was the whole thing. That's what they would do when the song was fading out. They just keep playing. And so they decided not to fade it, just keep going until somebody had to finally kill the song. And, other than what's the big hit by Don McLean, American Pie, we didn't see songs over 3.5 minutes on the radio. The Beatles broke a lot of those things. And you can't, they may not be your bag or any, some your friends' bags or whatever, but the fact is that what they were doing at the time, Rubber Soul, the White Album, even Let It Be, Sergeant Pepper's. Those were things that nobody else was doing at that time to, to further that music. You got to remember that's
Well,
1967, 1968.
And here's my where I take issue with the Beatles. Like I can appreciate their music. I listened to a lot of the Beatles over the years. But
Yeah.
when people say things like, "Oh, well, the Beatles were brilliant because they did X," I kind of laugh because I'm like, it wasn't just them though. Like, people don't realize how much production was going on behind the scenes with, their producers and stuff, and the recording engineers being like, hey, we could do it this way. And they had some ideas, and they certainly were like constructing more than the skeleton of the song. But some of the brilliant stuff, like, hey, we're going to have the orchestra all play these random instruments or these random notes, and then we'll have them like crescendo. Like, that didn't come from them. That came from
George Martin was
yes, that came from George Martin.
I mean, and nobody, even the Beatles, even Paul McCartney will tell you that was the fifth Beatle. I mean, that guy was everything to the Beatles, and I don't think that they would say, "Oh, we could have done it without George."
I'm just saying, like, when people think of the Beatles, they don't think about George Martin. Like, they don't think about him sitting over in the corner, like smoking a cigar, being like, "Yeah, I did that," like. But I'm sure he's paid handsomely for his contributions over the years. And yeah, I'm like, I kind of laugh because we know later after the Beatles were done, we know that, like, John had trouble in the studio. He could not do a damn good performance to save his life. They'd do like 200 takes or something. And he would just be like, blasted out of his mind with drugs and alcohol. They got to the point where he'd hate backing and doing his backing vocals so bad that they would use automatic double tracking. They came up with this, basically what automatic double tracking originally was a broom that they would push the tape as it was recording so they could get a double. So they would have two tape machines running, and then the other one would be like kind of out of phase and whatever, so it would sound like a double.
Yep.
Yeah. And then they would mix it back together. And it was a real subtle effect. It actually, there's a lot of plugins that do it now, and they do it really well. But it's a funny situation because when you think about it, like, that was done because he was lazy. Not lazy, but he was like, he was just angry and like, I don't want to do another take. Like, I just don't want to do that.
Well, Ozzy was like that for the longest time. They couldn't get him in the studio for a few minutes at a time. So he would come in and he'd do a couple of lines, and then he'd do a couple of lines, and then he'd leave the studio. And it was like, okay, we got to somehow.
There was somebody else they had issues with like that too. I'm trying to think who it was. But the whole double tracking solution and all that kind of thing is, that's another studio trick that saved John Lennon. And I think that you'll find, if you were to dig around and you were to talk to the right people, you will find a lot of production stories that happened with the Beatles that probably don't get talked about. But I did want to mention one thing.
Oh, yeah.
Frank Zappa, right? There was a big thing with him at one point where John Lennon played on stage with him with Yoko Ono, right? And I forget what the deal is. There's some big controversy. But Zappa did not have good things to say about his attitude. And a lot of people have said that. So I kind of think that, that stands up this whole, like, Nirvana is the Beatles thing, because a lot of the same stuff goes around about Kurt Cobain as well. Like, he's kind of a jerk behind the scenes, and, like, he didn't take people seriously and wasn't concerned about the business stuff at all. And, he honestly, like, for who Kurt was, I think the addiction had gotten him so bad that he just didn't care about any of the money making. And that's why I said, like, people are like, oh, well, he hated stardom. I don't think he hated stardom. I just don't think he cared about it. I literally don't think he cared about it. It's like somebody told him he had to be at this place to perform this thing, and he was going to do it, but that was only because, that was going to be what gave him enough money to buy the heroin, and he needed,
to buy more.
Right. And the same thing happened to Lane Staley, man. Of Alice in Chains. Like, his whole situation was, when they did that last record with him, like, his teeth were falling out. He was so strung out that his health was just collapsing. They were watching him die in front of them. And the producer and the band were both like, the band was shocked, but they Like, it hadn't sunk in yet that he was basically dying. And they were doing anything they could do to get him to do the takes. And the producer was doing the same thing. Like, just give him the drugs, or like, give him whatever he wants, and like, we'll just try to get through this.
And you got to wonder at some point, because everybody goes back, it's so sad, and I wish this, and I wish that. You got to wonder if somebody shouldn't have said, you know what, man, no, you can't do it.
Yeah.
I remember Rush, the band Rush, right? So they told their drummer, no, you can't do it. The original drummer. That's the original drummer for Rush. He had diabetes, if I remember correctly, and he wouldn't stop drinking. And so they said, "Look, we don't want to be the reason you die. We love you. That's why we're telling you, no, you can't do this anymore."
And that's what bothers me when I hear these kinds of stories, because the sadistic, like, cynical side of me hears these production stories, and I go, it's pretty clear to me that the music industry thrives on people like this because they're easy to control and manipulate. But I also kind of feel like
we talked about that with one of our guests. I kind of feel
like yes, we did. I kind of feel like in some of these situations, people are thinking, well, it's not going to get that bad. Like, they're going to turn themselves around and it'll be fine. Like, and so they just don't intervene. Like, in the case of the producer that was like trying to work with Alice in Chains, like, I think he was kind of just sitting there going, I can't clean this up myself. I have this deadline and I have to get this done. And like, we'll do anything we can do to get it done. And then, then I can work with him and try to get him into therapy, or like we could talk to the people that need to be involved. But it's like too little too late. Like, it should have been dealt with before they even started a record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I hear stories of people like Phil Anselmo and like what he's gone through. That guy, he's done, he does these talks at colleges now where he goes around and he talks about his daily schedule. I think I've talked about this on the show before, but there's an interesting interview you can find on YouTube where he sits down and he talks about like the day in the life of a heroin addict for him. And I think it sheds some interesting light on some of these people we've been talking about and some of their situations, whether albeit drugs or mental illness or just, personality, like conflicts and that kind of thing. Somebody like Phil Anselmo, he says that basically, like, he'd get up at like 2:00 in the afternoon because he just slept, pretty much all night long because of the heroin. He'd get up at 2:00, he'd make a call to his dealer. It's the first thing he did. Then he might eat something if there was something available, but he would like wait, and he'd be looking out the window waiting for his dealer to show up. And then his dealer would show up, and then he would buy, and then he would shoot up, and he would go back to sleep. And then he would be asleep for an hour, and then he would get up, and then he would like make another call to his dealer to come back, and then he would shoot up again, and then he would like sleep the rest of the afternoon. And then at like maybe like 7:00, he'd leave his apartment, and he'd go down to the liquor store to buy beer, and then he would, get drunk, and then he would come back, and then he would shoot up again, and then that's the process would start up again. Like, and then he would wake up 2:00 next day, and it would all start over. And it was just like everything he did was about how do I get the next hit of heroin. And I think that when you put yourself in that mindset, these people, any of these people that have dealt with addiction problems, any band that's had addiction problems like this, that's what ends up happening. It's like it revolves around the possession and use of narcotics. And whether or not the music is good or bad is completely irrelevant. And if you're a producer in that situation, you're like, I got this contract. Like, they're not, I think some of it is they want to absolve themselves as like, well, it's not my responsibility. But at some point, somebody in that production process has to say, no, it is my responsibility. Because this is a human being, right?
Yeah. I mean, with Cornell, you got to wonder that he, from what I could cull from all the stories that have come out since, he just kind of took everything onto himself. I don't know for a fact because I wasn't there. I didn't get to see any of the signs, but nobody said there was.
I don't
any
think
sign.
he was using that long.
No. I don't think
No,
it was
because
using. I think it
he
was.
did commit suicide, and it.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of rumors and allegations that him and Scott Weiland like had kind of a pact, or that because they were close friends, or that he could just never come to terms with the fact that Scott Weiland was gone, and it was like a big part of his life had just ended, and he just did not know how to cope with it. I don't want to try to get into the mindset of someone that's in that level.
When you're somebody on that level, there's nothing other
They're
people
isolated.
can't understand.
We're talking about people who are addicted. Do you think Phil Anselmo, as psychotic as he was over whatever kind of narcotic he could get his hands on, do you really think he thought what he was doing was okay? No, he knew it was not okay. And he was probably freaking out because all of his handlers was like, just get it for him. Just take care of it. Like, at some point, that is the isolation because they know that this is wrong and nobody's telling them. And it's like, well, obviously, like, I'm above everything, so I'm not connected. That's that disconnectedness that they get involved in. And so for Cornell to lose somebody who is a close confidant and stuff in Wayland, like, then all of a sudden he's going through this moment where it's like, now I really am alone. Like, I don't have anybody else really, which he probably did, but I mean, it's like, that's a big part of it, is that realization that, I'm by myself now. And
and I'm sure that he felt that he was alone, that he had lost the one person that could understand what he was trying to say, that could actually, I mean, we understand the words, but can we comprehend the feeling behind them?
All right.
And that's
so since we got into all this vocal stuff from Green Day and really bad,
that's sad shit.
Yeah, it is sad. I'm trying to get away from it because I'm getting depressed.
I'm telling you, it's just sad. This is a sad day.
To back off and like to put it back in perspective. So we're talking about bad singers or good singers or whatever, singers that like do weird things, and you kind of look at their situation and go, that's weird. So you're familiar with Meghan Trainor, I'm sure. The bubblegum pop princess or whatever you want to call her. I don't know. And then we're going to talk about Taylor Swift too. We're going to get to Taylor Swift
all about
next
the
too.
bass.
So she's out plugging a new album, right? Meghan Trainor. And she was on the Today Show the other day. Now, first off, Today's Show has like the worst sound ever. If you've ever watched any of their live performances in the morning, it is ungodly bad. So you can tell immediately, like when people are like not having a good day and they haven't had their coffee and like they're hoarse or whatever from the concert the night before that they're on the Today Show. And I can remember like seeing David Bowie perform years ago and just being like, wow, this is pretty bad.
Well, yeah, they wake you up at 6 in the morning
right. And I get it. But I think I saw Lionel Richie on there. He killed it for one song, and then one song was pretty awful because the production was bad. But I saw Meghan Trainor on there the other day, and I shit you not, it was the worst lip sync job I've ever seen in my life. It was so perfect. And she had it down like they were to the point where she was like ad-libbing and stuff, and she was lip syncing it. And I'm like, this is bad. Really, really bad. When somebody's dancing and they're singing all these perfect notes and it's like they have perfect pitch and there's no like lack of breath control or anything like that, something's wrong. Okay. And the fact that she was like holding the microphone way out here and stuff in certain places, and it's like there's no difference in volume, and it was not realistic. And I don't think you could hear any crowd feedback coming in through her microphone. I think they actually have microphones in the audience that they like mix in. But usually, like when Lionel Richie was on there, you could hear the audience through his mic a little bit, and you can kind of tell, like, okay, so this is real, like this is legit. In Meghan Trainor's case, it was obviously badly lip synced, but it didn't like. I'm surprised that it didn't like hit the press. But then again, I think people know these pop singers. People all lip sync.
They're lip syncing now, and it's like it used to be. Like I said, it ruined Ashley Simpson's
but not
career.
These people. The expectation is, like, I would rather see them lip sync than to see them. It's just awful. Don't reward it.
Taylor Swift. Let's get to Taylor
thing.
Swift.
As you know,
Come
Jim,
on. We got to
the
get
new
to Taylor
Tool album
Swift.
dropped, right? Because
Oh my
how
gosh.
could you
Okay,
not
yep,
know?
Go ahead, because
Right? How
I
could
put it on
anyone?
my page. I put the whole Taylor Swift
At
Tool
this point,
thing.
how could
Yeah, I know.
anyone not know that Taylor Swift
I know.
and Tool were going head to head on iTunes? Okay, but the funny thing was that so the Tool record comes out and like everybody,
Tool record knocked her off the
but
number one
everybody knew about it. Like they were like, "Oh, Tool, yes, great, fine, fantastic." Apparently, if you're under the age of like 24, you have no idea who Tool is, and that's kind of mind-boggling to me because, like, I knew who the people that were around before my generation were. Why the hell is this generation so like not even? They don't have any inkling of what went on before them. When I got to high school and I started seeing people where,
because okay, before you do that, because remember what I talked about when you go to work, you'd hear music on the radio.
that's
When you were in
true.
school.
That's
there
true,
were-
but now it's
there
so
was radio,
personalized
right? And
because
sometimes
we
they'd
all
have
have
them
our own little headphone mix.
That's right. When Dad puts music on in the car,
Yeah,
see, that's
my
where
daughter's
kids,
putting on her
they got
headphones. I'm like,
AC/DC
I
and
turned
Judas
around the other
Priest
day and I was
and
like,
Washington.
bullshit, take them off.
Yeah, because that's what happens. Now a kid literally can grow up in that bubble, and the only thing they
that's
know is
scary.
what they are.
I would
fed
encourage
by
anyone
iTunes
with
and
children
stuff.
to
Yeah, go
consider
ahead.
exposing your children to music that is outside of what they want to listen to. I would highly encourage it
Right.
because I wouldn't have the richness and depth in like the stuff I listen to and the stuff I'm interested in if I wasn't exposed to things.
How many famous musicians do we know said, yeah, they ask when they're asked in an interview, what were your influences? And they were like, oh, my older brother, my older sister, my older cousin, my good friends, my father, my mother.
Right.
That's where they got
Not this
that
generation.
stuff. But now
I got it from iTunes.
these things go on their head.
I got it from those crappy
Yeah.
iTunes commercials
These-
with the dancing multicolored people. Like what?
And the difference between them and me is I listen to that stuff. I listen to Post Malone and I've listened to Taylor Swift and I listen just because I don't like it
All right,
doesn't
all right,
mean I don't hear it.
All right, so
or I
couple
don't
things.
Get it.
The Taylor Swift
anyway,
thing
go
happens,
ahead.
right? So Taylor Swift's album drops, right? Everybody's like, "Oh, it's gonna go to Taylor Swift fans are, the little teenagers, whatever. It's gonna go to #1. It's gonna be the best album ever." Like, then they find out that Tool is coming out on the same day, and they're like, "Well, I don't understand what's the problem." And then suddenly they realize, "Oh crap, Taylor Swift's not gonna debut at #1." And they lose their minds. They're all over Twitter and Facebook, and they're just, "Oh my god, Tool sucks!" Like, I don't know anything about their music, but they're terrible. Like, how could they have a #1 record? Some band my dad listens to, or like whatever. Insert ridiculous comments here. I read through that article you shared, Jim. It was hilarious. I literally cracked up because I'm like, how could you just be that like closed off? And I had already kind of devised that that's what was going on, was that like they were all living in their own personal bubbles now. But
Yeah.
part of me is like, it's ironic, but I also feel kind of like vengeance. It's like, all right, so here's real substance taking precedent over,
All right, so every child pop band
sure.
ages out. Okay? It took Taylor a little
She's
longer.
starting to. She's getting there.
But you got to remember now, a 12-year-old girl,
Yeah, she's like 25
which is her,
or
let's
26
face it,
now.
her audience.
Yeah,
she's aging out of her audience because she was them
Yeah.
when she started. That's what
she was the
that's what
60-year-old
made
kid
it that she
like,
lasted so long. Yeah, she was a 14, 15-year-old kid when she got her first hit. 16 maybe when she had her first album. That whole thing, she wrote her own music. Everybody was
That
my God.
stopped.
And whether you like it or you don't, I'm not putting anything out there. She had rich parents who, were able to do all this stuff for her and give up everything they had to put everything. And rightfully so, they made the right investment. Hopefully, she's giving them something back. So the movement of her, she's going to age out, and nobody my age gives a crap about the new Taylor
Yeah,
Swift.
well, yeah, that's the
They
thing.
don't
Like,
even care about the old.
personally,
bit.
I don't think she's going to age out the way that everybody thinks she is, because I think she has more staying power than people realize. I don't think she's going to be a Madonna type, but she'll have a a career doing a very specific set of music for a very specific set of people, and she will live very comfortably for the remainder of her life.
Oh yeah, she could. I'm not saying that she's not gonna. She could walk into any place in Vegas. Go,
yeah, and here's the contract.
Yeah. Okay.
You sure you want here and not the place across the street? Like, Yeah. Right.
De Bellagio says, "Yep. Okay, Cirque du
Yeah,
Soleil, you're out." Taylor's playing tonight. Yeah, and she says, "I want $1.5 million a week, and I want this." They're going to give it to her. But so she's got everything, and she's got the chops.
I'm not disparaging like her talent or ability or anything. I just think it's funny that the fans like they're literally saying Taylor is much better than this other band that they've never heard before, and I'm like, okay,
well that's just it.
This is exactly the problem we have. People are not being exposed to things. Compartmentalization. So that's the other whole like facet of this is I'm not a big fan of Tool's view on religion and things like that. And I
don't even know what it is. So.
Against it. It's like you're either for or against it. They're against it. And I kind of I'm not a big fan of that, but like I can appreciate their music. But it's vindication for me in a way. It's like, okay, so here's actual music with substance that people still are getting excited about because it is substance-based music.
Yeah. And I think that's what's important about the fact that they took the number one.
It still matters.
Is that they did get that. One of the things that people have to remember is when they're fans of something, regardless of who you're a fan of, and regardless of, because so many people are used to getting their music through Spotify and all these, Pandora and everything else, and spins are the things that create it. Instead of actually purchasing the song, you purchase a song, it's like 10,000 spins versus having to get all these spins, right? They call them spins, by the way, which I don't get. It's a stream.
Well, I've heard them called streams too, but okay.
Anyway, yeah. So, because of that numerical value that they give to streams versus purchasing. If those fans actually purchased her album, she'd have blown them out of the water. And I think that the difference is a lot of the Tool fans are going to purchase, even if they just purchase the MP3 version.
So technically, if you have Apple Music and you do a download of the album, it's not the same thing as purchasing it. So I have a feeling they're both. Yes, I have a feeling they're both. I don't think. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I have a feeling there's probably a lot more people just doing it on Apple Music even for Tool. I think the industry has changed. There's no sold music anymore. Like CD sales are in the crapper, and that was one of the things that the guy from Justin Hawkins from The Darkness was complaining about. Because he's like, people will compare us with other contemporary bands. They say we're not popular. We didn't make a lot of money. Like we didn't have all these platinum records. But he's like, you know what? He's like, we've outsold these guys and these guys and these guys and the big name bands. And he's like, the thing is, we didn't do it through streaming. People actually bought the record. Like they bought the whole album. They bought a CD copy. And he's like, so even if we're only going gold, we're still making it just as much money as like Bon Jovi did on their last record, or something like that. Because he's like, you don't get paid if people are streaming the music. He's like, we'd much rather have he's like, if people want to stream it, fine. He's like, we would much rather have people buying our record than streaming it. And he's like, and that's been the case. So I think it's a really interesting paradigm.
Yeah.
You're going to see some weird stuff because these shenanigans in the record industry right now. You're going to see bands like The Darkness who have a lot of money, and you're going, how did they make that much money? Because people are actually buying the CD or they're buying a digital, a digital copy of the album rather than to just download it for free on iTunes or whatever. That's why so many bands have been fighting having their music streamed. Tool fought it for years. They didn't want their music streamed on iTunes.
Yep.
They only did it because they wanted to stream the current record. And they were like, okay, so if we're going to have to do that, we'll have to let the other ones go too. Right.
Yeah,
right.
Open the library.
I mean, Led Zeppelin was late to the game. Right. Like, there's a bunch of bands that were like, we're not gonna go this way.
AC/DC was late to the game,
But
they didn't want any digital copies whatsoever.
I think it's
could not. I think the Beatles were a long hold.
Yeah, so I have my reservations, but I think it's really good for the independent artist because you're going to get something. Like the tape trading thing doesn't happen anymore. You're going to get the stuff on iTunes, and you're going to tell your friend about it. And they're going to download it on iTunes. You know what I mean? And I do believe like Metallica, when they went around and hypocrited themselves, about the whole piracy thing, like they were kind of onto something in the sense that tape trading was bad for them too because they weren't getting paid for tape trading. And you can look at it as a promotional expense, sure, but I would argue that like this makes sure that the artist gets paid. This is as good, although I don't think the deal is as good. This is almost as good as being a part of ASCAP or BMI or whoever who's going to protect your rights,
right?
Because you want that music, I'm going to get a royalty check from Apple, and I know they're good for it.
But I will say this. See, spins are not paid equally. So, yeah, and that's got to do with your contract. And of course, that's got to do with your management.
Well, to an extent, like they have a flat rate, but once you get to a certain level, you can negotiate that rate. But like for example, like I think on DistroKid, it's like if you have like 50 plays or something, you get like a penny. You know what I mean? Like it's some low number like that. I got 34 cents last year, so. But the point is that I got 34 cents. So at least I know I'm being compensated.
You almost got a cheeseburger.
If I didn't have that and I was just giving the music away for free, I wouldn't get shit. So, if God willing, I have I have a $20 check come next year. Like I at least know that like, hey, people are listening to my music and I got $20 for it.
Right. And $20 is a lot of spins.
38 cents was a lot of them.
It is a lot of streams. Hey, we got
a platform here. I'm gonna pimp my music so hard on this show.
Right. We should do a thing
before we
next week. We should do it.
We should before we bomb out of here.
All right, we got to
before we bomb
up.
out of here. The Practical Guitarist podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. We still have pickups to give away, don't we, Jim? I know you got a set. I know Nick's got another set in the wings waiting. Jim has a soldering iron now. It's going to happen. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yep. It's going to happen this week. I actually have to, I'm going to go on Facebook Live and do it on Facebook Live.
Telly Pickups, they're coming.
You guys will watch me mess it up.
And if you haven't talked to Nick, he's in our Facebook group. Talk to him. If you're looking for pickups, just buy some. Like, do the guy a favor. Spend $100 on him. And you'll get better pickups than what you're going to get if you bought from Seymour Duncan or DiMarzio, right? It's just going to happen. And you're going to pay less money, and they're going to be hand-wired. They may not be worth as much if you were to pull them out, but let's face it, pickups don't really sell for that much when you resell them anyway. So take the hit and support our show, right? Because if you support Nick, he can support us, and then we can all support each other, right? We have a bunch of ways to support the show too, like outside of the Great Lakes Guitar Pickups brand and all that. You can find out about all of them in our Facebook group. Sure, join our Facebook group. It's great. It's a wonderful group of people. They're all very supportive. We moderate the hell out of it, and we try to keep it very positive. There's also Patreon. We have a Patreon. We have a Threadless store and an Amazon affiliate link. And if you join our Facebook page, you can get information about all of those. But you can go to the Amazon affiliate link and you can spend money on stuff that you want, and we get like pennies. It's great because
we get a spin, and you don't pay 1 penny more. Dude, pay exactly the same fee as you would.
I went into the account the other day and there was actually stuff purchased in there, and I was like, "Hey, we got like $6. Like this is awesome." And
we are paying for NAMM.
Dude, this is the long road to
we might be
NAMM.
able to buy one beer.
This is the long road to NAMM 2021.
And that's what we're trying to do. That's the long road.
Yeah, so we're starting now. And of course, all the money goes back into the show. Jim and I don't pay ourselves a salary or anything. Could you imagine having enough money to pay a salary? Yeah. No, we don't pay ourselves a salary or anything like that. We just we use the money to put it back into the show. So
yeah, we're negative money every month.
Jim spends what's your hosting bill's like $30 a month or something, and then I'm spending $20 a month on the actual service we use to record the podcast.
Yep.
And so like we have all the equipment laying around, but
if we just put that money into the
I mean, dude, think about it. It's like we're $50 negative every month. Like it's pretty crazy. We do have $15 a month coming in from Patreon and stuff like that. But join our Patreon if you like the show. By all means, get in on it.
Yeah.
I did want to announce one thing that did happen, and I don't know that all of our Patreon subscribers are interested or want to get involved, but we do have a what do you call it? A Discord channel now. And if you'd like details and you are a member of our Patreon, I'm also going to post them in the Patreon page for people who are contributing. But the Discord group, you join it, and if I'm on, like you can send me a message, and I'll jump on there, and I will actually talk to you with my mouth, and it'll be great. And then you'll probably want to slap me and hate me for the rest of your life. So it'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
But these are the kind of things we want to provide to our listeners. We're trying to grow a community for everybody of positive-minded, like practical guitar players who are solving the problems that they're facing in playing in their local communities. So,
all right.
Yeah. I've been David.
I've been Jim.
And tonight we were practical guitarists.
Yes, we were.
Who are also sad.
Yes.
Good night.